Herzlich willkommen zu deinem Lieblingspodcast, dem Bewohnerfrei-Podcast. Und egal, wo du das gerade hörst, ich bin froh, dass du dabei bist. Und heute kommt eine ganz besondere Folge und diese wird auf Englisch sein. Und zwar mit einer ganz, ganz berühmten Persönlichkeit aus den Vereinigten Staaten. Und dieser Mann sitzt gerade in Utah und der heißt Sean Covey. Und wahrscheinlich kennt ihr seinen Vater sehr gut. Er hat ganz große Bücher geschrieben, die 7 Wege der Effektivität und all diese Dinge. Und from now on, I will switch into English and I will do the official introduction. But before we do that, Sean, how gaat het met jou? Alles leuk vandaag? Of?
Ja, ik praat Afrikaans.
Ja, leuk. We kunnen het alles interviewen op Afrikaans ook maken. Now everybody is confused. What's that? So you speak Afrikaans and I speak Dutch.
Yeah, so Afrikaans is, I lived there in South Africa for a couple of years. And I when I was living there, I was actually pretty good with Afrikaans. So,
okay.
Kind of like Dutch. So, got some little German ties. So it's cool.
Perfect. So if for some reason I don't know a word, we meet in the middle in Dutch Afrikaans. Would that be okay for you?
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay, but before we start, I would like to give the audience and the listeners an official introduction in our podcast.
Yeah.
Sean is a business executive, author, speaker, and innovator. He is president of Franklin Covey Education and is devoted to transforming education throughout the world through a principle-centered leaders approach. Sean oversees Franklin Covey's whole school transformation process called Leader in Me, which is now in over 4,000 schools and 50 countries throughout the world. Let me guess, South Africa is in it.
South Africa is in it, yes.
What about Germany?
Not yet, but coming.
Okay, good. So we're going to
a lot of schools in the Netherlands.
Oh, that's good. So we're going to say it loud and clear because this is also being featured on the Lufthansa airplane, and there are many business executives. So let's bring it to Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean is a New York Times best-selling author and has authored and co-authored several books, including the Wall Street Journal #1 business bestseller, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, The 6 Most Important Decisions You Will Ever Make. I would love to know what that is. The 7 Habits of Happy Kids, The Leader in Me, and The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, which has been translated into 30 languages and is sold over now 8 million copies worldwide. If I read something like that, I'm like, 8 million? And we have an announcement to make because for Germany, I had the privilege of writing the pre-word of that, right?
Yes, exactly. So grateful for you doing that, Toby. Thank you.
Thank you for. I didn't sell 8 million books. You are the superstar, not me. He is a versatile keynote who regularly speaks to kids and adults within schools and organizations, numerous radio and TV schools. He graduated with honors from BYU with a bachelor's degree and earned an MBA in Harvard. You must be 500 years old. As the starting quarterback for BYU, he led the team to 2 bowl games and was twice selected as the ESPN Most Valuable Player of the Game. Wow. His family founded a run global nonprofit charity called Bridle Up Hope, whose mission is to inspire hope, confidence, and resilience in at-risk young women through, what's the word? Equestrian?
Equestrian.
What's that?
Horses.
Oh, with okay, got that. I learned a new word. He's born in Ireland, so Sean's favorite activities include going to the movies, and I read here he lives with his family in Utah. That was a long introduction. Yeah. Welcome and taking your time.
Thank you, Toby. So good to be with you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Let me jump in at the beginning by if you hear your introduction, can you believe it yourself, what you have already achieved in your life?
No, I mean, I don't look at it that way because I always feel like I'm behind. I always feel like I haven't done anything. I have more to do. I'm driven to, I want to end my life and feel like I've been fully used up and contributed. And so I'm always anxious about doing more.
How did you become the person you are today? How did you grow up? I mean, is the innovator, the person who's really doing big things, is that in you?
Yeah, I think so much of this comes from my childhood. Just I had a mom and dad that were just positive all the time and always believed in you. And I had I look back now and I just think I had a magical childhood, right? Where I just roamed the streets. It was safe. And, I had just lots of support. And so so much of, I guess, my sense of being and purpose comes from my, first 10, 12 years of my life and having really good parents. I was lucky, good friends, good neighbors, good parents. So that was a big part. I also, you mentioned in the intro, I played football, right? Mm-hmm. American football. Doesn't really matter what sport it is, but that was a big part of my life. And I learned, I wasn't the biggest player, right? And so I was always behind because I was smaller as a quarterback. Most quarterbacks are really tall. Mm-hmm. I was on the shorter end. And so I always had a chip on my shoulder.
Okay.
And so I learned fortitude and I learned how to overcome obstacles. That was, a big formative experience in my life. So, and then I'd also say I've just always, I keep trying, right? I feel like I'm off course. There's a great metaphor about, you think about a plane. If I were to get into a plane right now and fly from Salt Lake City to Berlin, where you are.
Yes. There's no direct flight. You have to change in Atlanta.
No direct. Let's just pretend there was a direct. The plane would be off course 95% of the time. It would leave on time and arrive on time, but it's off course 95% of the time. And the, pilots get feedback and they keep course correcting, mm-hmm. right? Because the wind blows them one way and they course correct. Every few minutes, they're course correcting. And I've always felt like in life, it's kind of been my metaphor. I feel like I'm off course 95% of the time. I just correct myself fast, right? Okay. I need to be kinder to my wife. At work, I need to be a better leader in this way. I need to stop doing, I'm a big believer in just continuing to do your best and try and keep course correcting. And don't get discouraged when you're off course, because most of us are much of the time.
When did you learn the tools how to correct? Because I do believe most people want to do that, but they don't have the tools to do so. Was it in your childhood, in your education from your parents, that you got the tools already?
I think so. So my father's the famous author, Stephen R. Covey, wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But he was first and foremost, as good as he was as an author, he was an even better dad.
Wow. Oh, what a compliment.
Yeah, he was a genuine person and just a good person. And here's what I saw in my childhood. I saw my mom and dad get together with the family, the kids, and say, okay, kids, here are the goals for the summer, right? We want to take this trip. We want to do this. We want you kids to work on this. We want you all to read a book this summer and whatever. And we would always mess up. We had fights. We had problems we were like any family. Mm-hmm. But what they did right is I saw my mom and dad always try again, apologize. My dad, sometimes would lose his temper and yell at us, and then he would gather himself and say, we'd be driving in the car, kids, I'm so sorry. I know we were late for this meeting, but I should never yell at you like that. I apologize for my tone of voice.
Mm. Wow, that's big, right?
So I saw him say he was sorry a lot, my mom too. And I just kind of learned, okay, you just keep trying and keep setting goals and keep course correcting. And that's what life's about.
Wow. When did you realize that your dad is famous? I mean, you had friends, you had schools, yeah. You had friends coming over. Was there a moment when you were little, when you realized that?
Yeah. And it was kind of like, it wasn't until I was a little older. Because when I was a kid, you're a teenager and you think your dad's kind of weird, right?
Right. My children definitely think that I'm very weird.
Yeah, my teenagers, it's like, hey, some people like me, you guys. I know you think I'm an idiot. But Yeah, so it was fun. So growing up as a teenager, I used to have people I didn't know. They would come up to me and they would hug me and like start crying on my shoulder. And they'd say, I just want you to know, Sean, your dad's book changed my life.
Wow.
Are you serious?
My dad?
My dad? Did you know that he wears like velour pants with a dress shirt and doesn't even notice? I mean, he changed your life. And then I remember, this happened a lot. And then I'd go and watch him speak. And then when I was 19, Toby, for the first time, I picked up one of his books.
Really?
And I started reading it. And I thought, oh my gosh, he's so smart. This is so good. And he's matured so much.
That's so interesting. You don't see it because you have a different relationship to him, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it was just, father-son relationship. I really didn't see it or notice it till I got older and then started realizing, wow, he just got named one of the 25 most influential Americans,
Wow.
So
do you think through his education, he taught you the principles while not even teaching the principles?
Yeah.
You gave the example with the saying, I'm sorry, I messed up. I think many adults don't do that, but it's very important. Did you do that a lot while not giving you like a book lecture?
Yes, very much so. I mean, there's that great quote that says, teach your children, and if necessary, use words. And so he was a really good role model. And so he was always trying to model what he wanted us to be like, and I'd see the way he'd be kind to my mother, see the way people would do terrible things to him. He had some real hard things happen to him professionally. And I'd see the way he'd forgive people.
Okay.
Right? He would not hold grudges. He was always abundant. People would do bad things to him and he'd return it with kindness and win them over, right? And the way he would treat, he was always, he'd meet with kings and presidents, and then he'd treat his barber with exactly the same respect as he'd treat President Clinton that he spent a few days with, right? And so this was just, I kind of learned, don't respect titles, and everyone is equal.
Right.
Everyone's important. Everyone's got potential. And so he was teaching me that stuff all the time. He's also, one of the things that he would say to us kids is, you got to happen to life or it will happen to you.
Right.
It's the idea of being proactive. And so he'd never let us off the hook. So for example, I would come home and say something like, oh, my algebra teacher stinks. I'm going to flunk and it's his fault. He'd take me aside and he'd say, okay, if you got a problem with your teacher, go talk with him. What? You go talk with him. Don't talk about him, how bad he is. Go talk with him and address the issue. And I'd say, oh, where's mom?
Yeah.
Or I'd come home and say, I was in college one time. Dad, I couldn't get into the class because it was full. Well, do you really need the class? I do. I need it to graduate. Well, go talk with the teacher. I talked with the teacher and he said, it's full and I'm sorry, but you can go on the waiting list. We'll go talk to him again and tell him you'll bring your own chair.
Perseverance, right?
Yeah. And so I'd go talk with him again and bring my own chair. And finally the teacher said, fine, if you need it that bad, you're in. Bring your own chair. So he'd call it, in our home, we'd call it R&I. And he just, anytime we had an obstacle, he'd say, use your R&I. And R&I stood for resourcefulness and initiative.
I mean, that's basically, if you teach that to children, that's very, very big. And what's funny that you said that you saw your father not always well dressed and some things didn't fit. And this is what many people have, that they do a big mistake with mentorship. They believe the mentor has to be perfect in all areas of life, and that doesn't exist, right? Yeah.
No, totally. Yeah, it doesn't. I think everyone has got some weaknesses, but yeah, I think the key is just to be genuine and be yourself and model what you want to see in other people, and then realize, I'm going to mess up from time to time, and I'm going to apologize and not be above saying I'm sorry.
Right. When did you decide that you're gonna go like in your father's pretty big footsteps and becoming an author yourself? Because there could also have been the chance that you say, I'm gonna do something completely different. I don't want to have anything to do with that world, because we usually go to what we know and make it better, or do something completely different.
Well, I never felt any pressure from mom or dad to kind of follow his footsteps at all. He's always like, do whatever you think, whatever you like. But in college, I discovered I loved, I majored in English. And I discovered I loved writing. And so I wrote my first book right after I finished college. And I loved it. It was so exciting to write it and to publish it. And so I got the bug.
How was it called, your first book?
It was called Fourth Down and Life to Go.
And how many people read that?
Oh, I had 50,000 copies sold. And that's pretty good. Yeah. And it was written about my football experiences, right? I was a quarterback, and what I experienced was, I would have a really good game on ESPN in front of 65,000 fans. And the next week, people were so good to me. And the next week, I'd have a bad game and throw a lot of interceptions. We'd lose. And the people would treat me terribly and write nasty things about me. Same people. And this happened for a few years, and it's after a while, I just thought, this is so superficial and fleeting. And I learned not to get down when I had a bad game, and I learned not to get a big head when I had a good game. Just keep steady, because people will be fickle, and success is a mirage, right? And so is failure. So I kind of wrote about that in my book, my first book, and got the bug.
And it's pretty interesting, because I think that is what many youngsters and teenagers are really facing, right? They are being cheered up if everybody likes what they are doing, and they have to face a lot of criticism once they really stand for something. I wrote down one question. You probably heard about that in Europe. There are a lot of protests of children, which now goes all over the world, because a Swedish girl said, we have to do something for our environment. I'm going to stand up for it. She's 12 years old. Her name is Greta. And whole Europe is talking about that one girl, that young people now don't accept the status quo anymore. Why did it have to be that one girl that steps forward, of all your experience with kids and teens? Why don't most people don't do it in their home? Why do we always need something from outside to happen? Yeah.
Well, I think, my whole focus now is on kids and helping them. And I think we underestimate the leadership potential of children. And we, so I think it's marvelous what has happened there with Greta. And the leadership, I guess, she's showing, right? And people are attracted to it, because it's, wow, it took this young lady to kind of say what we're all thinking and feeling. And that's what, so I think that's just wonderful. I support it. And I think that as parents and teachers, so I'm thinking of home and school, I think we've got to do more to empower our kids to lead their own lives. We teach, we instruct, but so what we do in schools now, Toby, is we come into schools. You mentioned in the intro, this Leader in Me program we have in 4,000 schools. What we do is we go to elementary, middle, high school, K through 12 area, and we come in, we say, let the students run the school. Why are you doing morning announcements? Right. Find 7 young people that love being on the limelight, have a talent for it. Let them do morning announcements. Why are you doing school tours when people drop in? Find kids that are really friendly and outgoing. Let them do it. Right. Why are you when you do big events in your school? Let the kids organize and run it. You can be the scaffolding to help. So that's what Leader Me is all about: is empowering children to run their lives in the school. And so that's what we do inside these schools. So it doesn't surprise me. what happens is people are amazed
Right.
at how much leadership these kids can take.
Right. And she was also criticized. The first wave of media said she has autism. There's something that's not wrong, that's not right with her. And now she became the hero. It's exactly what you said. She didn't change anything, but now the media switched sides, said, oh, she's good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, is that the price to pay to stand up? That you have to kind of, and I think that's especially difficult for children, that criticism will always be there.
It is very difficult. There's such a epidemic right now among youth with anxiety and depression. Mm-hmm. I don't know as much about it as in Europe as I do here in the United States.
Yeah, very much. Through social media, right?
I believe it is. And I think social media is a big cause because you are suddenly, your life is on display constantly, right?
Yeah.
And you're being criticized. There's a lot of cyberbullying that goes on. I just saw it with my teenage daughter the other day where somebody said something rude about her and her weight, her body. And it just, I just saw her shut down for 2 days, right?
Wow.
So it's so important that we try to, as parents and as teachers in schools, we try to help our kids become grounded in who they are, their self-worth as people, because, in the world of social media, you'll be popular one day and not the next, right? You'll get complimented one day and criticized the next. Kind of like when I was playing football, I kind of learned that lesson.
Right.
But now it's a constant barrage, and I think it's just so important for kids to be grounded, in who they really are and how important they are, their worth and potential, independent of popularity. Right? It has nothing to do with popularity. You're an important person. You're valuable. You got great gifts and abilities. Mm-hmm. Don't let the world beat you up.
So It starts with the parents, right? It starts giving them roots at home so they don't fall for everything that's out there.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. It does. It starts with parents, and it starts with spending time with your kids and grounding them and mentoring and modeling what you want them to be like. And then also, I think, talking through these issues too, like with my daughter the other day, sitting down and saying, hey, sorry that happened. You're fine. Don't worry about it. So those kinds of things.
Did you have some daily rituals with your children that led them the way of how they are today?
Yes, we do. We have, this is what we've done and what I encourage families to do. And we write about this in some of our books, but the three things. Number one is we have a family mission statement.
Mm-hmm. Like a company, yeah?
Yeah. That's very good. But a family mission statement, you have a personal mission statement, you have a company mission statement. Why not have one for your family? It doesn't have to be long. I have a friend that has one that's like a constitution, right? It's 1,000 words. And they love it, right? Mine is like 10 words.
Okay, what's yours?
And we came up with it. Well, it's kind of personal.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of about gathering. Mm-hmm. We live so we can all be together. The idea of no empty chairs. We're all in this together. Okay. Well, everyone at the table.
Right.
So that's one key thing I encourage you to do. Is it kind of sounds weird maybe, but just get together with your kids and say, hey, I want to come up with, it could be a word, it could be a sentence, it could be a paragraph, it could be a poem, it could be an image or collage, a crest, something that represents who we are. So there's some family identity. We did this when I was young. At first I thought my dad was crazy. And then after like 3 months, we talked about it now and then. We had a meeting a couple of times and we came up with a mission statement, which was basically our home is a place of peace, order, fun, relaxation, where we can invite friends and we can renew ourselves to go out and make contributions to the world.
Wow. Okay. In which age are children capable of doing that?
I think you can start right when they can talk.
Okay.
It doesn't mean you don't evolve it, right? You might change it when they get a little older. But boy, why not have it? And then you kind of feel like we went through that as a kid, and I felt like that. That's cool. We have an identity as a family, and the word I fought for was the word fun.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I wanted to make our home fun, and
Right.
we ended up having the fun house, right? That all the kids wanted to come to. I think part of it was family coming together and making that decision.
Mm.
That'd be one thing I'd recommend. A second would be, and I try to do this every month with my kids, one-on-one dates.
Okay.
You have 2 kids, just tell them, hey, once a month, it's me and you, your night. What do you want to do?
Nice.
And do what they want to do. And
you do it separate with the children.
Separate.
So, mm-hmm.
It's different. As soon as it's 3 of you, it changes.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with those. You can do those too.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you have one-on-one time with your child or each of your children if you have more than one. That'd be a second thing. And third is we always have a family night. We call it forced family fun. And we try to do it every week, and we probably do it 3 out of 4.
Mm-hmm.
And we just say, okay, forced family fun. We're going to movie and dinner tonight. Oh, Dad, I want to be with my friends. I got this. We go, nope, you're forced to go. And it's always fun at the end, right?
Right.
And you have great memories. Does it work night? Sometimes I'll make an exception. Yeah, you need to do this with your friends. I understand. But, we do it 2 to 3 times a month. We try to do it every week. Probably ends up 2 to 3 times.
So it's all about it's about rituals and belonging.
Exactly. Rituals, traditions.
Right.
You build your life around those, right? Your kids get their identity from those. So I think if you have a mission that kind of grounds you, that you didn't just give to the kids, you and the family built it, right?
Yeah.
And then the one-on-one time, you can't underestimate the connection. I mean, imagine that if you were to do that once a month over 20 years,
right.
Just think of the bonding, and then having having these traditions as a whole family where you do something fun together.
It's beautiful. And at the moment, I do witness something. I wanted to ask you that because I also read the book because I wrote the foreword, that many young adults, 17, 18, 19, they're becoming very, very strict to themselves of having a morning ritual, an evening ritual. The body has to be perfect. The nutrition has to be perfect. Some of them, to put it in a nutshell, I think losing a little bit of their childhood or young adulthood by wanting to become a masterpiece. Let me put it this way. Are you seeing that trend as well?
Yes. And it's part of this social anxiety you're seeing in youth, right? Especially in the young people, kind of trying to be impossibly perfect.
Right.
Because you see it on Instagram, right? And it's like, wow, they're having fun, and she's in her bikini and she looks really good, and he, look how popular this guy is, and right? And so you kind of feel like, man, I'm not perfect. And so so I think perfectionism can be a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think social media exacerbates it. And so again, I think it's so important as a young person to realize, everything's not going to be perfect, and you got to learn how to balance that. Rituals are great. I think, I encourage, I have a ritual every morning. I get up and I exercise and I read and I plan. I block out an hour, mm-hmm. and I do it 5 out of 7 days probably.
Right.
And it grounds me, right? So I think rituals are great. I think they're good for kids. But boy, let's be careful not to overschedule kids when they're younger.
Mm-hmm.
Like this last year, I feel like I overscheduled my 11-year-old.
Okay.
Because, he had football and then soccer and then he had a tutor. And he was just like his whole week was scheduled. And I'd watch him and he'd be like freaking out. And so after a while, I thought, that's too much. I'm going to cut back on one sport. We don't really need the tutor. He's doing okay. And I'm going to give him some free time just to be a kid.
Right.
Wake up on a Saturday and have nothing to do. Except,
beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
So beware perfectionism, especially with these teenagers. And I just say one other thing, Toby, if you don't mind,
Yes.
about social media.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a plan as a parent. You can't just let it go, whatever your kids want, because it'll suck you in. And I've been coaching this last year, some sports. I can tell if a kid is addicted to technology.
How can you tell? Because maybe parents can see the signs.
Their response time to me talking about do this, and their attentiveness, and I'm like, I can tell this kid is addicted to Fortnite or to whatever program he's on, because I can just tell, because it impacts the way they socialize and act. And so I think as parents, there's no one right way to manage and monitor use of technology, but it's being totally overused across the world.
Right.
You got kids, you wonder why your teenager's depressed, and we'll ask why they're spending 40 hours a week on this.
Right.
Okay.
How would you do it as a parent? Because very often, even from my 6-year-old, he's 6. I hear, but the other kids, they're allowed to play video games, but the other kids, and we have very strict times at home when they're allowed to see something. Yeah. They're not allowed to play any violent games. Of course, they're too young. Yeah. And on the other side, as a parent, I don't want him to be felt like left out of the group. Yes. Even in that young age, that starts when they're having their own topics.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you recommend?
It's a digital world, and these kids are digital natives, and they have to know it and survive in it. You can't take it away completely.
Right.
So I went. We had this guy come and speak to our school recently. Karchner was his name. He's an expert on this, and everywhere he goes, it's sold out. And he's so wise and has been doing this for a while. And he basically said, number one, he said the best thing is come up with a contract as a family about with your kids and discuss it, and have them educated. Watch a video or two on kind of the harmful effects of too much social media and too much technology. Mm-hmm. So we did this. It works really well. What we did is we came up with the program. We said, kids, would you feel okay about this? And in the end, they said yes. So it was as simple as, okay, here are times we don't use our phones: at dinner, anytime we're at the dinner table, anytime we're in the car. We get so bored. No, be bored. It's healthy.
Okay.
So we say dinner time, car time. We have on Sundays up until 5:00. There's no phones. And everyone agreed to that. And then we have screen time. We use it and just say you've got 3 hours a day on your phone. After that, you can use phone and text, but all the social media goes away. They all agree to that.
I love your quote. It's boring. Yeah. It's good for you.
Good for you. So anyway, there's no one right way, right? Every family will do it differently. But my point is, have a plan. Otherwise, your kids are going to be spending their lives on their phones.
Yeah, you said sucked in. That's a big word. I mean, that's the life sucks you in.
Yeah, and then your phones, have them go to bed at night. So our bedtime is 10 on weeknights, and weekends is 12. Mm-hmm. So and they put it on the docking station, not in their rooms. Otherwise, they're going to be watching videos till 3 a.m. watching YouTube. Anyway, I strongly, working in education for all these years, I strongly encourage parents to have a plan for your media use in your home.
Right. Now you wrote this book that sold over 8 million copies. If you could really fundamentally change the system where kids are growing up in school, kindergarten, even universities, until they are real adults, what would you really change? Or is there a country or a method where you say they're already going to the right direction? Germany is definitely not. I don't want to say anything about the US, but I was in high school in the US. It's a little different than Germany. It's more, there's a lot of more group activity, but pretty much it's the same thing. What would you change in an ideal world that you could create?
Sure. That's a really big question,
I
Toby.
know. Because it has a lot of factors.
A lot of factors. There's a lot of good things. The good thing about education is there are a lot of good teachers, a lot of good principals, administrators. I'd say the majority, they care, they love kids. You can see excitement on their face. I just got back from a trip to China, and we've got Leader in Me schools in China all over the place. And I looked at these teachers, they're young and they're vibrant and they're happy and they love what they're doing, right?
Let me tell you one note to that. My mother is a teacher. My sister is a teacher. And in Germany, you have to sign a contract with the government that you never will go on the street to demonstrate. You will. She had to sign that. And she was so pumped. She wanted to do something different. And now I see over the years, she can't. She signed that.
Yeah, no, that's tough. So let me just say, I think the majority of educators and administrators, principals, et cetera, district superintendents are some of the best people around. They care, they love, and then they're placed into a tough system that hasn't evolved like businesses have evolved. They're stuck in the industrial age still.
Right.
So much so with desks and teachers up front talking and take a test to assess, which, I'm not a big fan of standardized tests because I think it measures, if this is a spectrum of intelligence, it measures a sliver.
Right.
So the changes I would make are what we're trying to do with Leader in Me. Captures it perfectly because, again, Leader in Me started with one school that was failing, public school, elementary school, about to be shut down, high poverty, and the principal saw a new way. And it was really a paradigm of every child has genius and every child can be a leader. And we've got to celebrate and find and help them develop talent. So it came about with, I think what we need to do is, one thing is celebrate all the talents, not just the academic gifted child and the athletic. Right. There's so many, all of them, you are really good at this or that, or this is how this school started in Raleigh, North Carolina and she gave everyone in the school a leadership role and responsibility that they would apply, that they would make up. I want to be in charge of the playground leadership. Okay. So I'm in charge of making sure everyone's getting along well. I'm a tidy person. I'm in charge of lunchroom cleanup, and so every school is basically run by the kids.
So it all starts with responsibility?
Yes, I think it starts with paradigm. I think it starts with, paradigms of every child has genius. I think we too often think about, these are the exceptional ones. These are the leaders, the middle, and these are the laggards. Instead of saying, you know what, they're all gifted in different ways. So I think it starts with paradigm and how we view. That's one thing. A second is, I believe that you've got to get out of, school's got to be educating the whole child. No more just reading, writing, math, science. It's a big mistake. Think about industrial age, Toby. It was, all about showing up on time in 12 hours and shifts. And the knowledge worker age, what is it about? Collaboration, valuing differences, flexibility, adaptability, working in teams, working across functions, no job description. And there's a huge career skills gap. It's huge, where employers are saying, colleges, you're not giving me the students I want. You're not educating them properly because they come to work and sure, they have an engineering degree and they can't get along with other people. Right. It's a massive career skills gap. And they recently surveyed academic officers and said, what percentage of your students are prepared after college to work? And they said 95%. Asked the same question to employers. They said 11%.
Unbelievable.
And so in today's industrial age, in modern age, information age, it's all about teamwork, collaboration, cooperation, creative thinking, of course, you got to know math and reading and the basics, but that's just the price of entry.
But
If
don't
kids
you think
can't get along well, then they're not going to succeed. So schools need to educate the whole child.
Yeah.
So in grade school, reading, writing, and math, and social emotional skills, goal setting,
Right.
Collaboration, public speaking, communication,
Dreaming.
yes, dreaming,
Yeah.
whole child. So anyway, those would be a couple changes: is
Right.
change the paradigm, educate the whole child, and then get out of the way a little bit.
Why do you believe the system is not disrupted? Let's look at economics. Let's look at the Ubers of the world, the Airbnbs of the world. Economy always disrupts. A system is just being disrupted. And for some reason, school stays the same worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why do you think nobody's touching that? Because it's so fundamental, or?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I think it's so.
Or is it politics?
You don't have a lot of natural market forces is part of it, right? Like in businesses, if you don't excel, you get wiped out and you're gone, right? So you don't have a lot of natural market forces functioning inside of government institutions, right, including public school systems, right? I think that's part of it. I think tradition's part of it. I don't know. That's such a good question, but you are on the fringes seeing all kinds of creative things happening. And there are some really cool school systems like KIPP schools in America, some private schools that are doing some really cool things. And what we're trying to do with Leader in Me.
Right. I mean, we're
trying to disrupt. We want to be a disruptive influence and get to 100,000 schools across the world and have others follow our lead to help turn the apple cart upside down and say, you know what? We got to think differently about the kids. We got to do different practices. We're trying to work within the system, though. We're not going to legislators saying change that. We're saying school by school, we're going to help you turn your school around, let the kids run it, and
beautiful. Yeah, for me as a young father, my son is going to school now this year. Right. And my wife and I, we looked at so many school systems, and what I'm afraid about is that what he's learning now, he cannot use once he is 18 or 17, because we see that most of the jobs that we know now, I believe, and you can tell me wrong if I might be wrong, will not exist when he is 20. I mean, that's pretty clear already. So we were looking for a system that is looking for a plan that every child has. Let me say, there was an old principle, and he really got me. He said, every child has a plan for his body that he wants to grow, his mind, and his soul. And this school tries to look at all three parts of the child. And that convinced me. And then we went there.
Good for you. That's the whole child idea, right? Very good. I think we always say there are four parts, which is, mind, body, heart. We always say heart is relationships.
Yeah.
Right. Social, emotional, and then soul is kind of meaning, purpose, drive, whatever inspires you.
Yeah. What are your major learnings and topics at the moment? We know all the books you have written already. You do that big project in the school. But as I talk to you, I see there's so much more. I think you are a person who's always doing and planning something new. What are the things you are interested in right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. Well, so one thing one key learning is, family is first. I heard a great metaphor the other day about, you see these Chinese acrobats, and you've probably been to a game of some kind, and at halftime they have a stick and they get a plate and they start spinning it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They put it on their knee, and the next one is on their shoulder, the next one's on their head, and they've got 3 plates spinning, and they end up getting like 7 or 10 of these. And there's no such thing as balance, really. It's all about how many plates can you spin at once.
Mm-hmm.
And most of us have too many plates we're trying to spin. And it's better to try to simplify and say, I can spend 3, maybe 4, and that's it. And knowing that one of them might be, like for me, one is family, one is my work, one is my service. My family runs a charity. And then one is myself, is trying to keep myself sharp.
That's already a lot.
That's 4, and that's all I can do. Right. And so when someone invites me to be on this board or to get into my golf game, I'm like, I can't spin another plate. Right. I've got these 4 going, and the family one needs to get spun again, and then, work needs a little focus, so I'm going to spin this. So they're not all spinning equally fast at the same time, right? You're spinning at different speeds, and that's kind of life is. You're kind of jumping back and forth, but you're trying to keep them all in the air. So I just think that's just one key learning is my most important plate is my family. And so I always plan every week and say, okay, what can I do this week? Block out time in advance, private date with Victoria this week. We're having this fun family thing on Saturday. That's job 1.
Right.
So that's been one key learning. And
it's beautiful. It's so simple and it's so beautiful because, that's where everything starts. And I would like to, on behalf of my entire community, say thank you so much for taking your time, because I know how many of them you are holding in your hands. And I asked my community what they would like to know from you. And one question that came up is, if you were allowed to put a statement in, there's that in New York, where you have probably been before, there's this big, it's on Wall Street, this big house where you can place an advertisement. I heard it's one of the most expensive billboards in the world. And you can place that one ad for one day. What would you put there? Yeah, you're talking about Times Square, New York City. Yeah, that big screen there that comes. There's Coca-Cola beneath that. I think that they run it since 100 years, but there's this big thing on top. You know which one I mean. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That's hard. Well, I'd make it really short. You can't have too many words. So it might be something as simple as, I like country music, and Tim McGraw, he's got this great song where he says, always be humble and kind. Wow. So the world is so busy. New York City is, that place is crazy. Yeah. Everyone's trying to get ahead. Everyone's trying to survive. And I think that's just such a good message. Always be humble and kind. Right. So Tim McGraw. It was very, very inspiring talking to you. And the book that is coming now on the German-speaking market is actually it's a remodel of what has already been there, but it's sold so many times. So we will put the link in the show notes of the podcast so everybody can click on it. And so I will say that in German now because okay. Also wenn ihr das neue Buch lesen möchtet, wo auch das Vorwort von mir drin ist, weil ich so toll fand, klickt auf den Link. Es ist im Gabal Verlag erschienen. I just told which publisher it has in Germany. Yeah. So you can sell 18 billion more books in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. Yeah. And I always close off with a short question, short answer session. And you just finish the sentence if you would be so kind. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Money can be wonderful and can be the worst thing for you. I personally grow as I serve other people. Wow, that's good. The most beautiful quote I've ever heard. Leadership is communicating to another person their worth and potential so clearly they are inspired to see it in themselves. Also very inspiring. And I see in 10 years, I see the world as making great scientific and technology breakthroughs and increasing social anxiety. Wow. Very, very positive. That's good. Some people I interview, they say there's going to be disruption everywhere. I'm like, oh, I like yours better. And the most beautiful place I've ever seen.
Oberammergau, Germany.
Really?
Yes.
For sure?
I went to the Passion Play.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah.
About 20 years ago, and it was stunning. So yeah.
So funny that you say that, because I believe most Germans haven't seen Oberammergau. But my cousin, she lives in Paris, and guess what? She has never been on the Eiffel Tower, right? It's always what it's right in front of your face.
You have to go away. You have to live in another country to appreciate.
Right. So if the German fans want to learn more about you, so they're going to read the book, which we talked about social media, which can also be like water. It can kill you, but it can be very soft and clean you. Which social media channel are you playing the most?
For me personally, Twitter.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It never hit Germany very big.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Interesting. What's the biggest in Germany?
I would say Instagram. Instagram is getting the biggest. It was Facebook, of course, but now it pretty much switches to Instagram. So now we have a message to all Germans. Go on Twitter so you can follow Sean around. And one more time, thank you so much for taking your time. It was an absolute pleasure. And we're going to sell a lot of books in Germany.
Well, thank you, Toby. It's great being with you. I appreciate what you do. You've got a great show.
Thank you.
And I appreciate your attitude and your spirit and enthusiasm. And it's a real honor to be with you. I've been to Germany many times, Austria, Switzerland, and love it there. And speak Afrikaans, which gives me a little bit of taste of German.
Right. So
thank you so much. Bye goed, bye donkey.
Yeah, I'm going to teach you one German word, which is pretty difficult for people who are not native speakers. It's called tschüss with an umlaut, ü. It means bye. Tschüss.
Okay. Tschüss.
Very good. Very good.